Thank you for staying with us. You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now to the next leg of our discussion. According to environmental reports, more than 400 million tons of plastic is produced every year worldwide, half of which is designed for single use. Out of that, less than 10% is recycled, while an estimated 19 to 23 million tons end up in lakes, rivers, and seas yearly. While Nigeria is estimated to generate about 2.5 million tons of plastic waste yearly, Lagos State accounts for 15% of the total waste generated. And this remains a huge challenge that affects not only the environment, but also human health and the economy. Activists and NGOs are now pushing for implementing the Take Back withdrawal schemes and exploring circular economy models to enhance recycling rates and reduce plastic pollution. And joining us via Zoom now from Benin City in Edo State is the Executive Director, Environmental Rights Action Era, Chima Williams. Thank you very much for joining in at this time. So what are your thoughts on this plastic pollution burden we have upon us as a country and the options that activists as yourself are proffering, among them the take back and the withdrawal schemes? Let's begin from there.
All right. Thank you very much, my sister. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. You're welcome.
Thank you. The issue of plastics, as you
Hello, Chima Williams, can you hear us? Okay, carry on.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Carry on. We lost a bit of your audio, so kindly go back a bit and let's start afresh.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I said Nigeria has its own fair share of the plastic pollution waste. Of course, if you look at plastic is a component in the waste system. And as introduced, globally now, countries, cities are moving out of the traditional waste management system where waste is always destroyed by incineration, now embracing circular economy where there is actually nothing that is called waste because everything can be turned to some other usable materials, either whether composable or non-composable materials. And as it is, why is it that globally we are calling for ban on single-use polythene? It is actually because the polythene materials belongs to the class of non-decomposable waste. Because if you bury, for instance, if you bury sachet water, plastic or container after drinking, then you'll be rest assured that in 10 years' time, you will still see that material there, not destroyed, because all the agents that help to make these materials compose are no longer there. But in that case, what should we be looking at? This is where circular economy practices come into play. And circular economy just means that you can recycle, you can reuse. So nothing is actually a waste. Everything has secondary value that it can be used and turned into for the benefit of mankind. And if you look at the issue of, the contribution of Nigeria, then it is something that what everybody's concerned, that we suffer mostly from this non-decomposable material waste, in a country where there's a lot of economic challenges. And some of this waste, or so-called waste, can be gathered and be utilized, reused in some other forms. Now, the campaign against single-use waste materials or polythene is just to ensure that at least there is something that is done to help save Mother Earth. Because when you create this type of problems, it is not only the environment that suffers, the human beings and all the other creatures, both eco and aquatic lives, all are affected. How? When you throw away, let's use the very common thing, because this we have to get our audience to understand us. We are not talking to only the elites. Now, if you use the sachet water, for instance, there are a lot of businesses that are operating today, manufacturing or producing sachet waters that are being used commonly in.
Go on.
All right, Chima Williams, if you can hear us, we are apparently battling with, some network glitches from your end. We hope you can still reconnect. We will, of course, try to reconnect. Theophilus, this is a major burden, as have rightly been said. The statistics are glaring. Lagos State is also, in the news, accounting for 15% of the total waste generated out of, 2.5 million tons, which Nigeria itself is generating. And, there are so many basic things we can do. There's talk now about people throwing bottles away, people throwing nylon plastic bags away carelessly, not knowing that inevitably, and with the rains, still pouring, there is a place where all of these go into, and it is essentially harming the planet. Chima Williams is back. Theophilus, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes,
so
okay, we'll soon go on break, but my question was bordering on the fact that environmentalists are claiming that the fossil fuel industry is a major polluter. Can you give us a breakdown or an understanding of how this is the case?
Yeah, when we want to compare, the various waste sources, the fossil fuel comes up number one, because from the search, discovery of a deposit and the harnessing of the materials, processing, and even transportation, every segment of this process has great waste components. What we call the mud materials or waters, for the scientists that are involved in fossil fuel production, where you have to separate the components, the three key components that comes through a collection of petroleum products. For instance, there is the sludge water, there is gas, there is the oil. So these three are separated. And in Nigeria, out of these three components, it is only the petroleum product that is used. The gas, in most places, are burnt away by way of gas flaring. And the sludge water is channeled into either existing water bodies like rivers, like streams, like the sea and rest of them, channeled into that. And of course, we know what this does to the environment
Right.
and to humanity.
Mr. Williams, let's put you on hold now and take a needed break at this time. We'll continue after the break for more on how to curb plastic pollution in Nigeria. Please stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. And we have been speaking about the global challenge that plastic pollution poses. And Nigeria also carries the burden of, ugly generation of waste, plastic waste that is generating about 2.5 million tons of plastic. And over the past couple of minutes, we've been speaking with Chima Williams of the Environmental Rights Action Group, now one of the activists that have been speaking on this matter for so long. And you, Mr. Williams, have also, identified fossil fuel as, one of the major culprits of pollution at this time. But in your view, what will a just transition from fossil fuel usage and abuse, what would it look like and how workable will it be in our country?
That, the issue of just transition is something, is a topic that most people take from the negative side. Just transition, what is just? It is because it is identified that the current practice is no longer workable. And you want to transit from that to a better pattern, which is transiting from fossil fuel to renewable energy. And when you talk about just in it, means that there are things that has to be done in regards to the transition itself. So a just transition for some of us will mean that, yes, in transiting from fossil fuel practice, economic practice, to renewable energy sources, you will have to ensure that one, which is most critical because that is the first victim of the transition that happens. There should be no job loss. It should be an articulated way of ensuring that those that work in the sector that is being transited from will also have to be involved in some other way so that their own economic power is not destroyed in terms of transiting from one source to the other. That is one. A just transition will mean a better way of doing things because you cannot be transiting from one bad practice to another bad practice and then you call it transition. Because in Nigeria, when you talk about transition, I mean, for some of us, we baffle. You want to transit from the fossil fuel energy source to a more cleaner energy source. And yet, the government of Nigeria is searching for new fossil fuel finds in other parts of the country and is including in legislation, the issue of search for fossil fuel and using money generated for Nigeria to conduct such searches. I mean, it beats imagination how you can now talk about just transition in such a transition, okay, from fossil fuel to fossil fuel. That is what it is. So that cannot be a just transition. A just transition will equally entail that you have discovered the negative practices that affect the people, the environment, and the economy. and then you are trying to do something in a better way. Now, for the new oil finds that the government will be making, at least as we've experienced, the one that have been celebrated recently, there is no environmental impact assessment to underscore or understand what impacts that discovery and assessment or harnessing of the oil in the upper northern region of Nigeria will have on the people and the environment, and what precautionary measures are put in place to guarantee that negative impacts are curbed, from the very beginning, and people are prepared to face the challenges when it comes. So,
all right,
just transition will mean doing things in a more better way.
All right, Mr. Chima Williams, that will be a fine place to rest our conversation. Now, we thank you very much, Executive Director, Environmental Rights Action, Chima Williams, for speaking with us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.